Never go to the farm, Catherine. Promise me. Those were among the few demands my husband, Joshua, ever made in our 24 years of marriage. I had always honored his wish, even when curiosity stirred whenever he briefly mentioned his childhood on a farm in Canada. But now Joshua was gone. A sudden heart attack had left me widowed at 52, with a resentful daughter and an aching emptiness where certainty once lived. 2 weeks after the funeral, I sat in the wood-paneled office of his attorney, Mr. Winters, where grief had been reduced to legal documents and signatures. There is one final matter, Mrs. Mitchell. He slid a small box across the desk. Inside was an antique brass key attached to a maple leaf keychain, and a sealed envelope bearing Joshua's neat handwriting. What is this? I asked, turning the key in my palm. 3 years ago, your husband purchased a property in Alberta, Canada. He instructed that you be informed only after his passing. The deed is now in your name. All taxes are paid for the next 5 years. I stared at him, stunned. Joshua had never mentioned owning property abroad. It's called Maple Creek Farm, Mr. Winters continued. It was his childhood home. He bought it back and restored it. The very farm he had forbidden me to visit. There's something else, he added quietly. Oil deposits were discovered nearby 18 months ago. Several companies offered to buy the land, but your husband refused. My thoughts spun. Why had he kept all this from me? With trembling hands, I opened the letter. My dearest Catherine, if you are reading this, then I have left you too soon. I'm sorry. There is so much I wanted to tell you but never found the courage. The farm is yours now. Over the past 3 years I have turned the broken place of my childhood into something beautiful. Something worthy of you. I release you from your promise. Please go there once before deciding what to do with it. On the desk in the main house you will find a laptop. The password is the date we met followed by your maiden name. I love you more than you will ever know. Joshua. Tears blurred my vision. Even in death, Joshua was still full of surprises. I need to see this place, I said. Mr. Winters hesitated. One more thing. Joshua's family in Canada is contesting the will. They claim he was not of sound mind when he repurchased the property. Given the land's value, this may become complicated. I slipped the key into my pocket, resolve hardening in my chest. I'm going to Canada today. 48 hours later, after rushed flights and a long drive through Alberta's countryside, I stood before tall iron gates reading Maple Creek Farm. Beyond them stretched rolling hills, golden maples, and a grand farmhouse gleaming in the autumn light. This was no forgotten childhood ruin. It was an estate restored with love. Hands shaking, I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The sight before me stole my breath. The great room soared with wooden beams and a stone fireplace. But it wasn't the architecture that stunned me, it was the art. Paintings, sculptures, and photographs of horses filled every wall and corner, capturing power, grace, and freedom. My lifelong passion. The love Joshua had supported but never fully understood. And there, on a desk by the window overlooking endless fields, sat a silver laptop, with a single red rose resting on its lid. Before I could take another step, the crunch of tires on gravel broke the silence. Through the front window I saw a black SUV stop behind my rental car. 3 men stepped out, each carrying the unmistakable Mitchell look Joshua had once shared. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, sharp-jawed. His brothers. And from the hard set of their faces, they hadn't come to welcome their brother's widow. They walked toward the house with the confidence of men who believed the place already belonged to them. Panic tightened my chest. I hurried to shut and lock the front door. My pulse thundered as I peeked through the side window. They gathered on the porch, murmuring among themselves before the eldest, a silver-haired version of Joshua with colder eyes, rapped firmly on the door. Mrs. Mitchell, we know you're in there. We need to talk. His voice carried the same faint Canadian accent Joshua's had when he was tired or upset. I stayed silent, backing away. Joshua's warnings about his family had always been vague but serious. Now, facing them in person, every instinct told me to be careful. The knocking came again, louder this time. Catherine. I'm Robert Mitchell. These are my brothers Alan and David. We're here about the farm. Of course they were. Not here for Joshua. Not here for me. Only for the property that had suddenly become valuable. My gaze darted to the laptop on the desk. Whatever answers I needed were there. Not outside with the men pounding on the door. Ignoring the increasingly forceful knocking, I crossed the room, opened the laptop, and typed the password. 05151998 Mitchell. The screen lit up instantly. A folder appeared labeled, "For Catherine." Inside were hundreds of video files. Each bore a date, starting from the day after Joshua's funeral and stretching a full year into the future. With trembling hands, I clicked the first video. Joshua's face filled the screen. Not the pale, fragile version from his final months, but healthy, strong, alive. He smiled into the camera with that crooked grin that had always undone me. "Hello, Kat," he said softly. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone. And you've come to the farm despite all those years I made you promise not to." He chuckled quietly. "I knew you wouldn't be able to resist. Especially once Winters told you about the place." Tears burned my eyes. "I've recorded a video for every day of your first year without me," he continued. "1 year of keeping you company while you grieve. 1 year of telling you everything I should have said while I was alive." He glanced down briefly, then looked back with quiet resolve. "Let's start with why I bought back the one place I swore I'd never return to." Outside, the knocking had stopped. Through the window, I saw the brothers walking back to their SUV, pulling out folders and documents, speaking in tense, sharp voices. Joshua's voice went on. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a heart condition inherited from my father. The doctors gave me 2 to 5 years. My breath caught. I chose not to tell you or Jenna. I didn't want pity. And I didn't want our final years overshadowed by waiting for death. His eyes softened. I wanted to live fully with you to the end. Not slowly die in front of you. Shock, hurt, and anger surged through me. He had carried this alone. Made decisions alone. Denied me the chance to prepare, to hold him tighter, to understand. "I know you're angry," he said gently, as if hearing my thoughts. "You have every right to be. But I hope one day you'll understand. I did this out of love, not deception." Outside, one of the brothers paced while another spoke urgently on the phone. "When I got my diagnosis," Joshua continued, "I decided to use the time I had left to create something meaningful for you. You always loved horses. Always dreamed of land where you could raise them." A small smile touched his lips. "So I went to the last place anyone expected. The farm I ran away from at 18, swearing never to return." He leaned closer to the camera. "My brothers don't know this, but I legally bought the farm from our father before he died. He'd wasted the family money, drowning in debt and drink. He sold it to me for a fraction of its worth, desperate for cash. He made me promise not to tell my brothers, who believed they would inherit it one day. So that was the truth behind the legal challenge. The farm was in ruins when I bought it," Joshua said. "Just like in my childhood. But this time I had the means to rebuild it. Every business trip these past 3 years I was here. Restoring it. Creating something for you." Outside, the brothers returned to the porch. Robert pressed a document against the window. "A court order or something like it." "My brothers will come for the farm," Joshua said, his voice turning firm. "They never cared about it until oil was discovered nearby. Now they'll try everything to take it from you." One brother ended a phone call with a victorious expression. "In the bottom drawer of the desk," Joshua said, "there's a blue folder with every legal document you'll need. The farm is yours. Completely and unquestionably. I made sure of it." His expression softened once more. "But Kat, whether you keep the farm or sell it, that's your choice. I built this place for you. Filled it with beauty for you. But I never want it to become a burden." His eyes shimmered with love. "I just wanted to give you a dream, even after I was gone." A new sound rose from the gravel driveway. A vehicle was approaching, an RCMP police cruiser, its Royal Canadian Mounted Police markings unmistakable. The brothers watched its arrival with quiet satisfaction. "One more thing," Joshua said in the video. "In the stables you'll find 6 horses. Every breed you've ever admired. I've hired staff to care for them whether you're here or not. They're my final gift to you, along with the means to enjoy them." The video froze on Joshua's smiling face as firm knocking resumed at the door. "Mrs. Mitchell." "RCMP." Please open the door. I inhaled deeply, closed the laptop, pulled the blue folder from the desk drawer, and walked toward the entrance to face whatever came next. Just as my hand reached the doorknob, my phone rang. Jenna. I hesitated before answering. Jenna, this isn't a good time. Mom. Her voice was tight with anger. Why didn't you tell me about Dad's farm? Or the oil? His brothers just called me. They're offering a fair settlement if I help them contest the will. What is going on? So they'd already gone after my daughter. The realization sparked a fierce protectiveness inside me. I'll explain everything soon, I promised, watching through the window as the officer spoke with the brothers. But Jenna, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. These men are not on our side. Mom, if there's money involved. This is not about money, I cut in, surprised by the steel in my own voice. This is about what your father wanted. Please trust me. A pause. Then a reluctant sigh. Fine. But call me back soon. I hung up and opened the door. A young RCMP officer stood there, flanked by the 3 Mitchell brothers. One smug, one impatient, one openly hostile. Mrs. Mitchell, the officer said politely. I'm Constable Wilson. These gentlemen have presented a court order requesting inspection of the property as part of an estate dispute. I smiled calmly, channeling the strength Joshua had always believed I possessed. Of course, Constable. But before anyone enters, I think you should review these. I handed him the blue folder. My husband anticipated this situation. Robert Mitchell stepped forward with a dismissive gesture. Family estate disputes are complex, Constable. My sister-in-law is emotional and confused. Actually, I said coolly, I am neither emotional nor confused. I am a widow standing on property that legally belongs to me, facing 3 strangers who happen to share my late husband's DNA. I turned back to the officer. Please examine the documents before granting access to anyone. Constable Wilson opened the folder and began reading. The brothers exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier confidence beginning to crack. Joshua had prepared for this. Every step, every challenge. Finally, the officer looked up. These documents appear fully valid, Mrs. Mitchell. A clear deed transfer, notarized statements, and certified proof of purchase. He turned to the brothers. Gentlemen, I see no grounds for a forced inspection today. This is a civil matter. Robert's face reddened. This is outrageous. That woman has no right. That woman, I interrupted steadily, is Joshua Mitchell's wife, and I have every right to be here. The brothers retreated to their vehicle, fury simmering in their eyes. The officer gave me an apologetic nod before leaving as their SUV disappeared down the driveway. A strange blend of grief and discovery washed over me. The man I had believed I knew completely had lived with secrets, some heartbreaking, others breathtakingly beautiful. Now I stood at a crossroads, return to the safety of my old life, or step fully into Joshua's unexpected legacy, and the battle that came with it. I closed the door, returned to the desk, and opened the laptop again. Tomorrow's video awaited me, and with it, more pieces of the man I loved, whom I was only now beginning to truly understand. Outside, the Mitchell brothers may have lost this skirmish, but the look on their faces as they drove away told me one thing clearly. The war for Maple Creek Farm had only just begun. That night I slept in Joshua's, our farmhouse, surrounded by evidence of his secret labor of love. Sleep refused to come. My thoughts churned with revelations. His hidden illness, the transformed farm, his brother's greed, and the hundreds of video messages waiting on the laptop. At dawn I finally explored the property. The main house was a perfect restoration. Rustic charm blended with modern comfort. Every room reflected careful attention to my tastes. A library filled with first editions of my favorite novels. A sunroom overlooking eastern pastures, ideal for morning coffee. But it was the stables that truly stole my breath. Just as Joshua had promised, 6 magnificent horses stood in spotless stalls. An Andalusian, a Frisian, 2-quarter horses, a thoroughbred, and a gentle Appaloosa who greeted me with a soft nicker as I approached. Good morning, ma'am. The voice startled me. A man in his early 60s stepped out of the tack room, wiping his hands on a cloth. I'm Ellis. Your husband hired me to manage the stables. I'm Catherine Mitchell. I said, offering my hand, though I suspected he already knew. He nodded, a warm smile touching his weathered face. Mr. Mitchell spoke of you often during his visits. Said you had a natural way with horses, something he never quite managed himself. You knew my husband well? Ellis hesitated. As well as he let anyone know him. He was here every month for the past 3 years. Oversaw every detail personally. Never delegated a task if he could do it himself. That was Joshua. Careful. Precise. Devoted. The Black Frisian, Ellis said, nodding toward a powerful stallion watching us with intelligent eyes. His name's Midnight. Your husband searched months to find him. Said he resembled a horse from a painting you once loved. My chest tightened. The Stubbs painting. The black horse against a stormy sky. I'd admired it in a museum 20 years ago. And Joshua had remembered. I hesitated before asking, did he ever mention his health to you? A shadow passed across Ellis's face. Not directly, but in the last 6 months he worked harder than ever. Longer hours. More projects. Like a man racing a clock only he could see. The confirmation stung. He had been building all this while quietly counting down his remaining time. His brothers were here yesterday, I said, studying Ellis carefully. His expression hardened. They've been circling ever since oil was discovered nearby. Suddenly interested in the family farm they hadn't visited in decades. What can you tell me about them? Ellis latched a stall door before replying. Robert's the eldest. Runs an investment firm in Toronto. Always acted like acknowledging Joshua was a courtesy. Alan's a lawyer, smooth talker, slippery. David follows Robert's shadow in finance. Their relationship with your husband. Strain doesn't begin to cover it. He shook his head. They tormented him as a boy. City sons who visited the farm reluctantly and looked down on Joshua for staying behind to help his father. So much suddenly made sense. When Joshua returned to buy the property, they mocked him for wasting money on worthless land. Right up until the neighboring Petersons struck oil. They'll be back, I murmured. Ellis nodded grimly. Count on it. But Mr. Mitchell was always 3 steps ahead. Back in the house, I forced down breakfast before opening the laptop for today's video. Joshua appeared on screen, seated in what I now recognized as the library. Good morning, Kat. I hope you slept well in our new home. His crooked smile hit me with physical longing. Today I want to show you something special. The camera moved as he walked down a hallway I hadn't yet explored, stopping at a locked door. This room is for you alone, he said. The key is in the top drawer of the bedside table, the antique silver one with the horse engraving. I paused the video and went to the bedroom. The key was exactly where he said it would be. Following his recorded path, I found the door at the end of the east wing. Plain. Unremarkable. Until I turned the key. The lock clicked. The door opened. And I gasped. A fully equipped art studio flooded with soft northern light filled the spacious room. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Easels. Canvases. Professional paints and brushes. Shelves of art books. Every item arranged with loving care. I hadn't painted in 20 years. After college, I'd set aside my dreams to teach, to support Joshua as he built his engineering career, to raise Jenna. Someday had quietly turned into never. Joshua's voice pulled me back as the video continued. You gave up so much for us, Kat. Your art was the first sacrifice. Though you never complained, I promised myself I'd give it back to you one day. Tears blurred my vision as I took in the room. There's one more thing, Joshua said. Check the cabinet beneath the window seat. I crossed to the cushioned seat overlooking the golden morning pasture. Beneath it, a built-in cabinet waited. Inside lay a flat archival box. My hand shook as I lifted the lid. Then I sank to my knees. My paintings. Dozens of them. Every piece I had created in college. The artworks I thought had been lost during our many moves over the years. Joshua had saved them all. Joshua had saved them. Protected them. Kept them safe for 20 years, waiting for the day he could return them to me in this perfect space. On top of the stack lay a small canvas I recognized instantly. My final project before graduation. A self-portrait of a young woman staring forward, eyes bright with possibility. Joshua had asked to keep it the day I finished it. Beside it was a handwritten note in his precise script. "She's still in there, Kat. The woman who painted with passion and vision. I've given you the space. The rest is up to you." I pressed the note to my chest, overwhelmed by love and grief in equal measure. Joshua had truly seen me, in ways I had stopped allowing myself to be seen. The crunch of tires on gravel shattered the moment. I moved to the studio window. 2 cars were approaching, the familiar black SUV of the Mitchell brothers, and behind it, a sleek silver Mercedes. "Jenna." She stepped from her car confidently and walked toward the brothers with easy familiarity. She was smiling, shaking hands with uncles she had never met yesterday. My daughter. Joshua's daughter. His dark hair, my stubborn chin. And already they were drawing her in. The fragile peace Joshua had left me dissolved instantly. The battle for Maple Creek Farm had just become personal. From the window I watched Jenna's open, trusting body language. At 27, she had her father's sharp mind and my determination, but none of our caution. Quick to decide. Slow to reconsider. My phone buzzed. Arrived with Uncle Robert and the others. Coming inside. "We need to talk." They had known each other less than a day, and already she was calling him Uncle Robert. I slipped Joshua's note into my pocket, locked the studio door behind me, and went to face them. They entered without knocking. Jenna first, daughter's privilege. Then the brothers behind her like wolves following an unwitting guide. "Mom." Jenna hugged me briefly, then pulled back, eyes sweeping the grand entryway. "This place is incredible. Why didn't Dad ever tell us about it?" Before I could answer, Robert stepped forward, Joshua's likeness cutting painfully through me. "Catherine," he said smoothly, "I believe we started off poorly yesterday. We were surprised by your arrival, just as you were by ours." His conciliatory tone didn't match the calculating look in his eyes. Alan and David stood beside him, neutral but watchful. Alan clutched a leather portfolio, undoubtedly filled with legal paperwork. "Jenna," I said, ignoring Robert, "we agreed you wouldn't engage with your father's brothers until we'd talked." She flushed. "They called again this morning with a reasonable proposal. I thought we should hear them out." Her chin lifted, defiant, familiar. "Besides, they're my family too. Family you didn't know existed until yesterday," I said gently. "Only because Dad kept them from us," she shot back. "Just like he kept this whole place secret. Don't you think that's strange? What else was he hiding?" The question hit close. Joshua had hidden much, but out of love, not deceit. "Your father had complicated relationships with his brothers," I said carefully. "He had reasons for keeping distance." Robert waved a hand dismissively. "Old sibling conflicts. Ancient history. What matters now is moving forward together." "Exactly," Jenna said eagerly. "Uncle Robert explained everything. The farm has been in the Mitchell family for generations. Dad bought it from Grandpa, but it was always meant to be shared among the brothers." I held back a sigh. Less than one day and she was repeating their version. "And the sudden interest in the farm has nothing to do with the oil discovery nearby?" I asked mildly. Alan stepped forward, opening his portfolio. "The mineral rights situation is only one part of a complex legal picture. We've prepared a fair settlement that honors Joshua's intentions while respecting the Mitchell family's historical claim." Robert smiled. "1/3 to you, Catherine. 1/3 to Jenna. 1/3 divided among us brothers. Everyone benefits." Jenna turned to me, hopeful. "It makes sense, Mom. We don't need this massive property. We could sell, walk away with millions, and Dad's family stays united." "Your father left this property to me," I said steadily. "Not to you. Not to his brothers." "Out of sentiment and confusion," Robert countered smoothly. Joshua was not thinking clearly in his final years. Anger flared. "My husband was of sound mind until the day he died." "Then why all the secrecy?" David asked quietly. "Why hide the purchase? Why elaborate arrangements with lawyers? These aren't the actions of a rational man." I thought of the videos, the restored farm, the art studio. Every detail carefully planned. Nothing irrational. Everything love. "Mom," Jenna said gently, "I know this is hard. Dad left us and now we're uncovering secrets. But this deal makes sense. We'd be secure for life." The door behind them opened. Ellis stepped in, concern etched on his face. Everything all right, Mrs. Mitchell? I saw the cars arrive. Robert turned sharply. This is a family matter. Ellis is my employee, I said firmly. He is welcome in my home, Alan interjected. His employment status is part of the disputed assets pending legal resolution. Ellis straightened. Mr. Mitchell hired me personally. He made me promise to care for this place, and for Mrs. Mitchell. We'll be reviewing all staff appointments, Robert said dismissively. I'd heard enough. I lifted my chin. I think it's time for all of you to leave. Silence fell. Heavy. Electric. And in that moment they realized I was not the grieving, confused widow they had expected. I fixed my gaze on the brothers, then softened it when it reached Jenna. Except you, I said gently. You're always welcome to stay. Jenna stared at me. You're really not even considering their offer? I'll review any written proposal with my own attorney, I replied calmly. But I will not be pressured in my own home. Robert's polite mask cracked, revealing the hardened businessman beneath. This property is worth tens of millions once oil rights are considered. We can resolve this amicably, or we can make things very difficult. Is that a threat? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. A reality check, he corrected. You're a schoolteacher from Minnesota facing a legal battle against opponents with far greater resources. Joshua may have meant well, but he left you in an impossible position. I thought of the blue folder filled with airtight documents, the videos of Joshua's clear, deliberate planning, the home built with love. I believe my husband knew exactly what he was doing, I said quietly. Now please leave. Jenna, you're welcome to stay for lunch if you'd like. Jenna looked torn, glancing between me and her newly discovered uncles. I think I'll go with them for now. We have more to discuss. She kissed my cheek. Please think about the offer, Mom. I watched them go, a hollow ache expanding in my chest. In less than 24 hours, my daughter had been pulled into the orbit of men Joshua had spent his life avoiding. Whatever they were telling her, it was working. Ellis waited until the vehicles disappeared down the driveway before speaking. Mrs. Mitchell, there's something you need to know. Something your husband asked me not to reveal unless absolutely necessary. I turned to him, drained but attentive. What is it? It's about the real extent of this property, and what's truly hidden here. He gestured toward the far side of the yard. We should walk. Some things are better discussed where walls can't listen. I followed him across the grounds, the morning sunlight bathing the beautiful farm Joshua had secretly built. Whatever Ellis was about to show me, one truth had become clear. Joshua had anticipated this battle. Even Jenna's vulnerability to manipulation. The only question was whether he had prepared me enough for a war I never knew was coming. Ellis led me past the pristine stables to a weathered barn I hadn't explored. Unlike the restored buildings, this one looked deliberately neglected, ordinary, forgettable. Your husband was a careful man, Ellis said, pulling out an old iron key. After his brother's first visit last year, he became even more cautious. They visited before? I asked, stunned. Joshua had never told me. Ellis nodded. They came unannounced after hearing rumors of oil nearby. Your husband was here overseeing construction of the art studio. They didn't recognize him at first. He'd grown a beard during treatment. The casual mention of treatment sent fresh pain through me. While I had been teaching literature in Minnesota, unaware my husband had been here, ill, working, building, and protecting this place from the very men now circling it. What happened? I asked. He observed them from a distance, then left without revealing himself. That night, he changed the property plans. Ellis unlocked the barn door. Starting with this. The door opened onto an ordinary barn interior. Hay bales, old equipment, sunlight leaking through wooden slats. Ellis walked to the back corner, moved several hay bales aside, and revealed a trapdoor set into the dirt floor. Your husband installed this last winter. The workers thought they were building a root cellar. He lifted the heavy door. A wooden staircase descended into darkness. After you, Mrs. Mitchell. Curiosity overcame hesitation. I followed him down. At the bottom, Ellis flipped a switch. Lights flickered on, revealing a concrete tunnel stretching underground. What is this place? I whispered. Your husband called it insurance, Ellis said. I call it genius. We walked the tunnel until it opened into a large underground room. Filing cabinets. A desk with computer equipment. Walls covered in maps, charts, and documents. Welcome to Joshua's war room, Ellis said proudly. Everything he gathered on his brothers, their business dealings, and the true value of Maple Creek Farm. I approached a large survey map pinned to the wall. It showed the farm and surrounding lands for miles. Red markings indicated oil deposits, with handwritten notes on depth, quality, and extraction difficulty. I don't understand, I said, turning to Ellis. Joshua knew about the oil? Not at first. He bought this land for you simply to restore it. But 18 months ago, when oil was discovered on neighboring property, he hired geologists to survey Maple Creek. Quietly. Ellis pointed to the map. They found something unexpected. The largest deposit isn't under the eastern fields where everyone is drilling. His finger moved to a rugged section of land stretching toward the foothills, terrain that looked worthless on the surface. It's here. Under the western acres. I stared at the markings. The very land Robert hadn't even mentioned in his neat little division plan. Joshua had outplayed them all. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't just a farm. It was a fortress. And a final act of love. The oil companies never found it, Ellis explained. The underground formation is deeper and shaped differently than expected. Your husband verified the data with 3 independent experts and bound them to secrecy. This land is worth far more than his brothers realize. Exponentially more. He opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. And that's not all. Inside were years of meticulously gathered evidence, tax evasion records, insider trading reports, misused client funds, sworn testimonies from former employees, printed emails, financial trails. A complete dossier. Joshua had built an airtight case against his brothers. I turned page after page, recognizing my husband's signature thoroughness in every detail. Why would he collect all this? I asked quietly. Ellis sat down across from me. Because he knew they'd come for the farm once he was gone. He wanted you to have leverage. I thought of Robert's smug confidence, Alan's legal maneuvering, their swift manipulation of Jenna. He anticipated everything, I murmured. Not everything, Ellis said softly. He didn't expect them to reach your daughter so quickly. The reminder of Jenna's betrayal stung. They were feeding her half-truths, promises of wealth, and a sense of belonging, offering connection to her father through shared blood and history. She lost her dad, Ellis added gently. And suddenly these men appear, telling her their family. That's a powerful pull. He was right. Jenna had always been Joshua's girl. Sharp-minded, curious, loyal. His death had left her adrift. What do I do now? I asked. That depends on what you want, Ellis said. You could sell everything and walk away rich, but possibly lose your daughter in the process. You could fight them in court using this evidence, likely win, but deepen family fractures. Or, I asked. Ellis gave a faint smile. Or you do what your husband always did. Think 3 steps ahead. Find the path no one expects. I looked around the underground room. On the desk stood a framed photograph I had never seen before. Teenage Joshua beside a magnificent chestnut horse, his face glowing with a rare, innocent joy. That's Phoenix, Ellis said. Your husband's horse when he was a boy. The only bright spot in his childhood here. One of his brothers sold the horse while Joshua was away at school, just to hurt him. Another piece clicked into place. Joshua's quiet support of my love for horses. The 6 horses in the stables were not just a gift to me. They were his way of reclaiming what his brothers had stolen from him. I picked up the photo, a plan forming in my mind. Ellis, does the laptop work down here? He nodded. Secure Wi-Fi across the entire property. Your husband insisted. Good. I need to watch the next videos ahead of schedule. Then I need you to arrange meetings. With whom? First my daughter alone. Then my attorney. And after that, I glanced at the wall of evidence. The oil company representatives who've been making offers. For the first time, Ellis smiled. You're planning something your husband would approve of. I'm planning something worthy of the man who loved me enough to build all this. I said, a new steadiness in my voice. And I'll need your help. Anything you need, Ellis promised. Your husband saved my life once. Gave me work when no one would hire an ex-con trying to start over. I owe him everything. And by extension, I owe you. Another side of Joshua revealed itself. Quiet generosity that had touched lives I never knew. As we sealed the bunker entrance again, I felt something shift inside me. Not just grief but partnership. Joshua had left me more than property. He had left me tools. Strategy. A way forward. The Mitchell brothers thought they were facing a naive widow. They had no idea what was coming. Over the next 48 hours I barely slept. I watched a week's worth of Joshua's videos in a single night. Each message revealed more of his foresight. They'll try to divide and conquer, he said in one recording. Robert will play friendly. Alan will apply legal pressure. David will watch silently. And they'll target Jenna. She's their easiest way to destabilize you. In another video, he walked the Western Acres, the rugged, forgotten land. This terrain looks worthless, cat. Rocky hills. Poor access. That's why it's perfect. No one studies land that appears valueless. Armed with Joshua's guidance and my growing resolve, I arranged to meet Jenna at a small cafe in town, neutral ground, away from both the brothers and the emotional gravity of the farm. She arrived 15 minutes late, defensive before she even sat. I can't stay long. Uncle Robert is taking me to meet the family attorney this afternoon. Uncle Robert, I repeated mildly. You've grown close in 3 days. She flushed. They've been kind and welcoming. More than I can say for you. You're treating them like enemies instead of Dad's family. I stirred my coffee slowly. Do you remember your art history professor? The one who taught perspective. How where you stand changes what you see. What does that have to do with this? You've only seen their perspective. I'm asking you to consider your father's. Dad's dead, she said bluntly, pain flashing in her eyes. And he clearly didn't trust us enough to tell us about any of this. I opened my bag and placed a tablet on the table. He left something for both of us. She frowned. What is it? Videos. Hundreds of them. Messages recorded before he died. Her face drained of color. He knew he was dying. Yes, I said gently. He was diagnosed 3 years ago with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. He chose not to tell us. He wanted our time together to feel normal. That's impossible, she whispered. He would have told me. Watch, I said softly with trembling fingers. She pressed play. Joshua appeared on screen, healthy, warm, unmistakably alive. Hello, my brilliant girl, he said, smiling. If you're watching this, then I'm gone. And knowing you, you're probably angry about all the secrets I kept. He chuckled gently. You never liked being kept in the dark. Not even as a toddler. Tears filled Jenna's eyes. I should have told you I was sick. Should have given you time to prepare. To ask all those brilliant questions you're famous for. But I was selfish. I wanted our last years to feel normal. I hope someday you'll forgive me. Then his expression grew serious. But there's something else you need to know. Something about my brothers. This was never a harmless family disagreement. Jenna leaned closer to the screen. When you were little, they stole my share of our father's estate. Used my name on fraudulent documents while I was away at college. When I discovered it and threatened to expose them, they threatened to frame me as an accomplice. Jenna gasped softly. And the truth, long buried, finally began to surface. Jenna covered her mouth, her eyes locked on the screen. I left Canada, changed my name from Jonathan to Joshua, and started over in Minnesota, her father said. I met your mother, built a life, raised you. It was more than enough. His expression hardened. But my brothers never changed. Whatever they're telling you now, remember this. They've wanted control of the family property for decades. Not out of sentiment, out of greed. And they will use anyone, even my daughter, to get it. The video froze on Joshua's troubled face. Jenna sat motionless, tears slipping down her cheeks. He was protecting us, she whispered. Not just from his illness, but from them. I nodded gently. Your uncles aren't the family connection they pretend to be. They're opportunists. And they saw you as the easiest path to what they want. She wiped her tears, anger replacing grief. They've been lying to me. About everything. Not everything, I said. The farm is worth millions. But they didn't tell you about the Western land, or the real oil deposits beneath it. Understanding sparked in her eyes. They're trying to cheat us. Us. I repeated, hope rising. She nodded firmly. I'm with you, Mom. I just wanted to feel close to Dad. They had stories, photos. I didn't think. I understand, I said, squeezing her hand. Grief makes us vulnerable. But now we think smarter. Together. Her posture straightened, determination hardening her features, so much like Joshua it made my chest ache. What's the plan? I smiled. Tonight we meet our own attorney. Tomorrow we meet Western Plains Energy. Why? Because knowledge is leverage. And right now we know something your uncles don't. 3 days later, the Mitchell brothers arrived at Maple Creek Farm precisely at 10 a.m., their black SUV rolling up the driveway with men who believed victory was inevitable. A silver Mercedes followed, likely their lawyer or oil consultant. From the great room window, I watched them approach. This time, I wasn't dressed as a grieving widow, but in a tailored suit chosen for battle. Appearances matter in war, and I intended to look every inch the opponent Joshua knew I could be. They're here, I called. Jenna appeared beside me, elegant in a navy dress, Joshua's cherished watch gleaming on her wrist. Ready? She asked. Completely, I said, squeezing her hand. Let them talk first. Let them corner themselves. Ellis appeared. They're settled in the dining room, just as you asked. Perfect. The brothers entered with practiced confidence. Robert in front, Alan clutching his leather portfolio, David silent behind them. With them stood a silver-haired man radiating corporate authority. Catherine, Robert greeted smoothly. We appreciate you agreeing to meet. This is Harrison Wells, CEO of Northern Extraction. We thought an industry expert might help guide a productive discussion. They meant to intimidate me with money and jargon. How thoughtful, I replied pleasantly. Shall we? In the dining room, documents were neatly arranged, coffee poured, water carafes gleaming. Professional. Controlled. Exactly as I wanted. Before we begin, I said, standing at the head of the table, I want to thank you for your previous proposal. It was educational. Robert's smile widened, misreading me completely. We can now discuss a fair division of the property's assets, he said. Yes, I agreed, lifting a remote control. Division. That's precisely what we'll discuss. I clicked. A hidden screen descended. A detailed map of Maple Creek Farm filled the display, boundaries, terrain, geological layers. This, I said calmly, is the complete survey of Maple Creek Farm. All 2,200 acres. Not merely the eastern 800 acres mentioned in your proposal. Alan shifted uncomfortably. The western section is undevelopable terrain. We excluded it for simplicity. How considerate, I smiled. Except for one small detail. I clicked again. Oil deposit data flooded the map. Massive reserves glowing beneath the western acres, the land they had dismissed as worthless. Harrison Wells leaned forward sharply, his corporate mask slipping. As you can see, I continued, the primary oil deposit lies beneath the western land you so generously offered to discard. Robert's face reddened. These surveys are unreliable. They've been verified by 3 independent geological teams. A new voice interrupted. The door opened. Thomas Reeves, CEO of Western Plains Energy, entered, followed by my attorney and 2 associates. The brothers stared in shock. What is this? Robert demanded, half rising. This, I said pleasantly, is a discussion about the true value of Maple Creek Farm. Mr. Reeves has expressed keen interest after reviewing my husband's complete geological data. Harrison Wells shot the brothers a furious look. You told me you had exclusive negotiation rights. They don't, my attorney said smoothly, placing documents on the table. Mrs. Mitchell holds uncontested legal title to the entire property, including all mineral rights. Any claims presented by the Mitchell brothers have no legal standing. Robert slammed his palm on the table. This land has been in the Mitchell family for generations. Joshua had a moral obligation. Moral obligation? Jenna's voice cut in, steady despite her trembling hands. Like the moral obligation you had to my father when you stole his inheritance? When you forged his signature? When you threatened to frame him for your crimes if he exposed you? Silence hit the room like a bomb. Color drained from the brothers' faces. They had underestimated the widow. And they had gravely underestimated the daughter. What exactly is she talking about? Harrison Wells asked, his discomfort growing by the second. Perhaps these will clarify, I said, nodding to my attorney, who distributed sealed envelopes around the table. Copies of documentation my husband preserved regarding historical financial transactions involving the Mitchell family, I explained. Some may fall outside the statute of limitations. Others, however, might still be of great interest to Canadian financial regulators. Alan opened his envelope and paled as he scanned the pages. These are private family matters, he stammered. They're irrelevant to this discussion. On the contrary, I said calmly, taking my seat at the head of the table. They establish a documented pattern of fraud, one that directly affects your credibility, especially considering you misled Mr. Wells about your authority to negotiate ownership of this property. Silence gripped the room. Joshua had foreseen everything. Every deception. Every manipulation. Finally, Robert exhaled sharply. What do you want? I want you to leave Maple Creek Farm, I said simply, and never return. I want you to stop contesting my ownership. Stop manipulating my daughter. In exchange, these documents remain private, seen only by those in this room. Harrison Wells stood abruptly. My company's involvement appears based on misleading and possibly fraudulent claims. The meeting shifted. What had begun as a hostile takeover became a carefully orchestrated counteroffensive. Across the table, Jenna caught my eye and smiled. Pride, vindication, and the quiet acknowledgement that Joshua had armed us for this moment long before it arrived. 2 hours later, the Mitchell brothers left defeated, bound by a settlement agreement my attorney had prepared in advance. Maple Creek Farm was secured. Not divided, not stolen, but preserved exactly as Joshua intended, for the family he chose. As their vehicles vanished down the driveway, Ellis stepped beside me. Your husband would be proud, he said softly. You outmaneuvered them just as he believed you would. I watched the dust settle, emotions colliding, grief, triumph, strength born from loss. We're not finished, I replied, thinking of the video still waiting on Joshua's laptop. This was only the first battle. And it was one we had won, using Joshua's preparations and the strength he always saw in me, even when I doubted myself. The following weeks passed in a blur. Legal closures, negotiations with Western Plains Energy, careful cataloging of everything Joshua had built. Jenna stayed beside me through it all. Her resentment over her father's secrets slowly transformed into gratitude for his foresight. Each morning we watched one of his videos together, finding comfort in his recorded presence. One evening, as we watched the sunset over the western hills, the land that now carried our future, Jenna asked quietly, Did you ever suspect Dad was sick? That he was planning all this? I searched my memories. There were signs, I admitted. His sudden urgency to update our wills. The way he studied our faces at dinner, like he was memorizing them. His habit of photographing ordinary moments. I thought it was a midlife phase, Jenna said softly. In a way it was, I replied. Just not for the reasons we understood. The greatest change I realized had been how Joshua stopped postponing life. Someday became now. He wasn't dreaming of a future, he was racing to complete one. Western Plains Energy had been startled by my terms. Instead of selling the oil rights outright, I demanded environmentally responsible extraction, land restoration guarantees, and a trust for future rehabilitation. These conditions are unusual, their negotiator had said. Then perhaps the industry needs unusual, I replied. The oil has waited millions of years. It can wait until it's done properly. To my surprise, Thomas Reeves had been intrigued. Your husband said you'd insist on doing this right, he told me. Not just profitably. Another piece of Joshua's planning revealed. 1 month after claiming my inheritance, I stood in the art studio Joshua had built for me. Sunlight poured through the north-facing windows. A blank canvas waited. After 20 years away, I lifted a brush again, hesitant at first, then steady. Outside midnight, the Frisian stallion Joshua chose because he resembled a painting I once loved, waited in the paddock. Ellis had been teaching me to ride again. My body protested, then adapted. remembered. Mom! Jenna appeared in the doorway, laptop in hand. Today's video is different. I think you should watch it alone. I set down my brush and turned, curiosity stirring. Joshua still had one more surprise waiting. And for the first time since his death, I smiled, knowing our story was not ending, only transforming. Jenna and I had settled into a comforting routine. Every morning we watched one of Joshua's recorded messages together over breakfast, finding shared healing in his familiar voice. Different how? I asked when Jenna appeared at the studio door holding the laptop. It's labeled month 2, day 15, she said. He titled it When Catherine Starts Painting Again. She handed me the computer with a knowing smile. He always believed you would. Alone in the studio, surrounded by the tools of a rediscovered passion, I pressed play. Joshua appeared seated in the very room. Empty then, bare except for the grand windows flooding it with light. Hello, my love, he said warmly. If you're watching this, you found your way back to your art. Back to the passion you set aside for our family all those years ago. Tears rose as I touched the screen. I've been thinking about legacy, he continued. What we leave behind. Most people think of children, wealth, accomplishments. But there's another kind, creating possibility in the ones we love. He gestured to the unfinished room. This space isn't complete yet, but in my mind I see it filled with your work. I imagine you standing at an easel, finally giving shape to the visions you've carried for years. I glanced at the half-finished portrait of Midnight on my easel. Joshua's imagined scene and my reality overlapped perfectly. I've arranged everything to give you freedom, he said. Financial security, protection from my brothers, place to create. But what you do with that freedom, that's your legacy, not mine to control. He leaned closer, eyes intent. The farm, the horses, the studio, these are only tools. The true inheritance is possibility, the chance to become fully yourself. I paused the video, overwhelmed. Joshua had seen the artist still alive beneath the practical teacher and mother I had become. When I resumed, his expression softened. I have one request. In the storage closet behind this room is a large blank canvas I commissioned before my diagnosis. When you're ready, I hope you'll paint something on it. Something that captures not just what you see, but what you feel about this place that brought me back to my beginnings and will carry you into your future. Until tomorrow, my love, he signed off. I sat motionless, absorbing his words. Then, driven by instinct, I found the closet and the enormous custom canvas he described, waiting for its purpose. In the weeks that followed, autumn blazed across Maple Creek in gold and crimson. I sketched tirelessly, trying to capture what the farm meant. Nothing felt right. Until one morning I saw Jenna riding Midnight through the eastern meadow. In that moment clarity struck. The painting unfolded slowly. Not a simple landscape, but layered time itself. The present-day farm rendered in crisp detail. Behind it, ghost-like impressions of the abandoned property Joshua had purchased. Beneath that, the ancient land enduring through generations. Threaded through these layers rode two figures, man and woman, symbolic and timeless. And just behind them, barely visible unless one looked closely, a third rider, a young woman forging her own path forward. When it was finished, Ellis helped me hang the painting in the great room. Jenna studied it, tears shining in her eyes. It's him, she whispered. And you. And me. The past, present, and future, I said softly. Legacy. That evening, watching the sunset from the porch of what had truly become my home, I felt Joshua's presence. Not as memory, but as partnership. He had given me more than security. He had given me reinvention. The oil would sustain generations. The farm would grow under our care. And I would continue painting, creating beauty from grief, building my own legacy beside his. Tomorrow's video waited on the laptop. But increasingly, I looked forward instead of back. The forbidden farm had become sacred ground, not a place of pain but of possibility. Winter descended on Maple Creek with breathtaking grace. Snow blanketed the hills. Frost etched lacework on windows. Smoke curled from the chimney into the Alberta sky. I chose to stay through the season, wanting to witness the full rhythm of this land that had become my unexpected home. Jenna returned to Minneapolis, her job calling her back. But each day we watched Joshua's videos together through FaceTime, 3 connected across time and distance. His recorded voice remained our bridge. In one video filmed a year earlier, Joshua smiled. The western hills are stunning after fresh snowfall. If Ellis has kept the snowmobile ready, take it up to the ridge at sunrise. The view is worth the early wake-up. I smiled. Just yesterday, Ellis had mentioned the trails Joshua mapped across the property. 6 months had passed since the confrontation with the Mitchell brothers. True to the settlement, they kept their distance. My attorney occasionally forwarded minor legal queries. Western Plains Energy began careful preliminary work, honoring every environmental condition we set. Thomas Reeves had become not just a business partner, but a genuine ally in fulfilling Joshua's vision. My phone rang, pulling me from thought. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. "Everything okay?" I asked, surprised by the unscheduled call. I'm not sure," she replied. Her voice was tense. And once again, life was ready to unfold its next chapter. "I just had a strange visit from Uncle David." My grip tightened around the phone. "David? What did he want?" "Officially, he came to apologize for trying to manipulate me against you," Jenna said. But something about it felt off. He kept asking subtle questions about the farm, whether I visit often, if I'd noticed any unusual activity on the property. A chill slid down my spine. "Did you tell him anything?" "Of course not." I kept my answers vague. Her voice lowered. "Mom, I think they're planning something." Sounded like reconnaissance. The Mitchell brothers had been quiet for months, too quiet for men used to control. "I'll alert Ellis and increase security," I assured her. "And I'll have my attorney remind theirs of the settlement terms." "There's more," Jenna added hesitantly. "David said Robert is ill. A heart condition. He tried to play on my sympathy, said family should come together in hard times. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The same inherited condition that had taken Joshua. Was it truth? Or another manipulation? "Be careful, Jenna," I warned. "It could be real. Or it could be a tactic." "I know," she sighed. "I hate feeling suspicious of every interaction with Dad's family. It shouldn't be this way." After we hung up, I moved to the window overlooking the snow-covered drive. Unease curled in my stomach. The brothers were capable of anything. I called Ellis. His response was steady and practical. "I'll alert the security team and check perimeter surveillance. The systems your husband installed are active." Another of Joshua's quiet precautions. Cameras. Motion sensors. Discreet but thorough. Once I thought it excessive. Now I was grateful. That evening, drawn by instinct, I went to the hidden bunker beneath the barn. If the brothers were moving again, Joshua might have anticipated it in the bottom drawer of his desk. I found a folder labeled in his handwriting. "They return." Inside, contingency plans. Pre-drafted legal injunctions. Contact information for Canadian authorities familiar with the brothers' past crimes. And one sealed envelope addressed to Robert Mitchell. A note was clipped to it. "A last resort. Deliver only if absolutely necessary." I stared at the envelope. What had Joshua written to his estranged brother that was powerful enough to be saved for a final confrontation? I tucked the letter into my pocket. Snow fell gently outside as I returned to the house, my thoughts sharpening into strategy. The next morning, Ellis knocked on my door. "We have visitors," he said grimly. "All 3 Mitchell brothers. And 2 men I don't recognize. They're at the gate." I moved to the great room window. 2 vehicles waited. The familiar black SUV and a plain sedan. "What do you think they want?" I asked. "Nothing good," Ellis said. "But refusing to see them could provoke worse. Better to control the encounter." He was right. "Have security remain unseen but ready," I instructed. "They may approach the main house only. No access elsewhere." As Ellis relayed orders, I called my attorney to inform him of the surprise visit. Then Jenna. "Do you want me to come?" she asked immediately. "No," I decided. "This may be designed to draw us both here. Stay where you are." Before heading downstairs, I retrieved one more of Joshua's safeguards. A small digital recorder disguised as a silver brooch. I pinned it to my sweater. When the doorbell rang, I was already seated in the great room, calm and composed. The recorder was active. The sealed letter rested in my pocket. Ellis opened the door. Robert entered first, thinner than before, his complexion gray beneath the winter light. Alan and David followed, their expressions unreadable. The next move was theirs. And I was ready. The two strangers entered last. One carried a medical bag, clearly a physician. The other held a leather portfolio, the mark of a lawyer. "Catherine," Robert greeted, his voice lacking its former authority. "Thank you for seeing us without notice," he added. "Family does have a way of arriving unexpectedly," I replied mildly. "Please sit. Ellis will bring coffee." As they settled onto the sofas opposite me, I noted the tension in their bodies, especially Alan, whose eyes kept darting toward Robert with poorly concealed worry. Whatever had brought them here, it centered on the eldest brother. "I'll be direct," Robert began once Ellis left the room. "I've been diagnosed with the same heart condition that took Joshua. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It runs in our family." So Jenna's information had been true. I kept my expression neutral. "My condition is advanced," Robert continued. 6 months without intervention. Possibly years with the right treatment. He gestured to the man with the medical bag. "This is Dr. Harmon, my cardiologist. And Mr. Pearson, my attorney." "I'm sorry to hear about your illness," I said carefully. "But I don't understand why this brings you to Maple Creek Farm." Robert exchanged glances with his brothers. "I need a heart transplant," he said. "But our family has rare blood and tissue markers. Finding a compatible donor is extremely difficult." A slow, chilling suspicion formed. Dr. Harmon spoke next. "Based on medical records, your late husband would have been a perfect donor match for Mr. Mitchell. And given genetic probability, your daughter may also be compatible." The audacity of it struck me like a physical blow. "You're asking for my daughter to be tested as a potential donor?" I clarified, ensuring every word was captured by the recorder pinned to my sweater. "Just preliminary blood tests," Alan said smoothly. "Nothing invasive at this stage." "And if she matches?" I asked. "Then we would hope she might consider becoming a living donor," Robert replied. "A partial heart-liver procedure. Minimal risk. Full recovery." I stared at them in stunned silence. After deception, manipulation, and attempted theft, they now wanted my daughter's body as salvation for the man who had tried to destroy us. "Let me understand this," I said quietly. "You attempted to steal my home. You lied to my daughter. You tried to turn her against me. And now you're asking her to undergo surgery to save your life." Robert at least looked uneasy. "We are still family, Catherine. Blood connects us." "Blood," I repeated thoughtfully, remembering Joshua's warnings. "Yes, blood connects us. But not in the way you think." I reached into my pocket and withdrew the sealed letter. Recognition flickered in Robert's eyes. "Joshua left this for you," I said, "with instructions to deliver it only if absolutely necessary. I believe this moment qualifies." Robert stared at the envelope, apprehension creeping across his face. "He anticipated that even a legal settlement wouldn't keep you away," I added. "He prepared for every contingency, including this one." Silence settled over the room. Dr. Harmon shifted uncomfortably. The brothers exchanged tense glances. "Before I give you this," I said, "I want clarity. You are asking my daughter, the same young woman you manipulated 6 months ago, to risk surgery for you. Yes or no?" Ellen exhaled. "Yes." "Then why not your brothers?" I asked, turning to David and Alan. "Siblings are better donor matches than nieces." Dr. Harmon cleared his throat. "Both brothers were tested. Neither is compatible." "And no other siblings?" I pressed. "No other family who could donate?" Another glance passed between them. David looked away. "No," Robert said firmly. "No others." I studied them for a moment. Then I handed Robert the letter. "I suggest you read this before we continue." With trembling fingers he broke the seal. His eyes moved across the page, then widened. Color drained from his face. Alan leaned forward. "Robert, what is it?" Robert didn't answer. He simply handed the letter to Alan. David leaned in to read over his shoulder. Their expressions shifted together, confusion, disbelief, then something close to horror. This can't be true, Ellen whispered. Father would have told us. Would he? Robert laughed bitterly. The same father who played us against each other? Who kept secrets like weapons? I watched curiosity growing. Perhaps, I said softly, someone should tell me what my husband wrote. Robert looked up at me, his gaze transformed. Joshua wasn't our half-brother, he said hoarsely. He was our full brother. I blinked. That makes no sense. Robert swallowed hard. Joshua wrote that our father remarried after our mother died, giving birth to him. And in that moment I knew Joshua's final secret had just detonated. One last safeguard, one last truth, prepared for exactly this day. So that's why there was such an age gap between you, I said quietly. Robert nodded, still shaken. That was the story we were told. That our mother died giving birth to Joshua. He swallowed hard before continuing. But according to this letter, Joshua discovered the truth while researching his heart condition. Our mother didn't die in childbirth. She left our father when Joshua was an infant. She couldn't endure his abuse any longer. Father invented the story of her death to avoid scandal and to erase her from our lives. Alan picked up the thread, his legal mind asserting itself even in shock. And that's not all. Joshua uncovered evidence that our father had another family, a relationship that began before our mother left and continued for decades afterward. A woman in Saskatoon, 2 children, a son and a daughter. Understanding slid into place. Half-siblings, I murmured. Robert nodded grimly. Both in their 40s now. And according to medical records Joshua obtained, both share our rare blood type and genetic markers. Neither knows about us. I studied him carefully. Joshua found them, but he never contacted them. Yes, Robert said quietly. He verified their existence, kept their contact details updated every year through a private investigator. He looked down at the letter. In case one of us ever needed what I'm asking from your daughter now. The irony was breathtaking. They had come to pressure Jenna into possible organ donation, while compatible siblings existed whom they had never acknowledged. David, still reading the letter, spoke next. Joshua writes that learning about these siblings changed everything. He was already planning Maple Creek for you, Catherine, but discovering this secret family convinced him to break completely from the Mitchell legacy of lies and manipulation. He wanted to build something honest. Something born of love, not obligation. Tears pricked my eyes. Even now, Joshua was teaching integrity. So, I said gently, you do have another option. 2 siblings who may be compatible donors. Strangers, yes, but no more strangers than you have been to my daughter until recently. Robert's voice was rough. We don't even know them. And whose choice was that? I asked. Your father hid them. You chose not to question the past. Now you face the consequence of those secrets. Dr. Harmon cleared his throat. Medically speaking, any potential donor should be contacted quickly. Mr. Mitchell's condition is serious. I looked at Robert. Once powerful, now frightened. Human. The letter contains their contact information, I said. I suggest you begin there. With honesty. Not demands. Not manipulation. Give them the choice that every person deserves. And if they refuse? Ellen asked. Then Jenna may decide whether she wishes to be tested, I replied. But only with full truth. No pressure. No deception. The brothers absorbed this in silence. Their resemblance to Joshua now stood out painfully. The same jaw, the same eyes. Only their choices had made them different. Finally, Robert rose with effort. We'll go, he said quietly. Thank you for this. Ellis escorted them out. I remained seated, letting the weight of revelation settle. Joshua had known of other siblings. Possible family. Possible connection. Yet he chose not to chase blood ties. He chose us. Love over lineage. That evening, snow drifted softly outside Maple Creek Farm as I opened Joshua's video for the day. His face appeared on screen, filmed in this very room 1 year ago. Hello, my love, he said warmly. If I've calculated correctly, today might be the day my brothers play their medical card. I gasped softly. They've known about my condition since I was a teenager, he continued. Father made sure of that. Yet they never offered help. He leaned closer to the camera. If they've approached you or Jenna about donation testing, then you've given them the letter about the other siblings. His expression softened. I considered contacting them myself many times, but their lives were established, their families complete. I didn't know if I had the right to disrupt that world with old truths. Then he smiled gently. The truth is, Kat, family isn't about blood. It's about choice. I chose you. I chose Jenna. And I hope the others are given the same freedom, to help or not, to connect or not, without guilt or obligation. I sat quietly as the video ended. A sense of completion settled over me. The Mitchell brothers had come seeking to use Jenna. Instead, they had been forced to face the buried truths of their own family history. Whatever they chose next was no longer our burden. We were free. Joshua had transformed his childhood prison into my sanctuary, his painful past into our hopeful future. Spring would return to Maple Creek Farm. Horses would run through green fields. Oil would be extracted carefully and responsibly. I would paint in the studio he built. Jenna would visit, perhaps one day bringing children of her own to ride the horses and walk the land their grandfather reclaimed. And Joshua would remain present, not only in recorded videos, but in every beam of the house, every brushstroke on canvas, every path across the fields. The Forbidden Farm had become sacred ground, not because of wealth, but because of love that outlived death. The forbidden had become cherished. The secret had become something to celebrate. And I, Catherine Mitchell, had become the guardian of a legacy built not on blood or obligation, but on the purest foundation of all, love freely given and gratefully received. Until tomorrow, my love, Joshua said as the day's video ended. Until tomorrow, I whispered back, knowing that while each new day brought another message from the past, it also carried me one step closer to the future I was shaping, guided by his example, yet forged by my own growing strength. Maple Creek Farm's story continued. No longer forbidden, forever transformed. Thank you for reading. If you enjoyed this story, share it with others who love heartfelt storytelling. Subscribe and let me know in the comments how it made you feel. Cheers!